welcome. We are going to read some Dinotopia again. I'm gonna close my door real quick. I always do that. I always start the stream and then I'm like, oh, I need to do something. Okay, here we go. These pages are I don't know, I feel like they're almost thicker than the binding. Such such preparations. A full week is required. I spent 2 days simply fastening the stiff bucks, joining the overlapping plates of armor for the Apatosaurus. Her name is Koro Koro Kiddina. She bears her added burden with dignified resignation. By mid-morning of the day of our departure, sharp-spined Stegosaurus escorts had arrived. I protest to Binks that Will and I were neither warriors nor did we have weapons. Ours is an invitation, she said, not a challenge. Tyrannosaurus Rex is not evil, only hungry by nature, with no love for society and no stomach for green food. That's why we carry fish. I did not find this reassuring at all. The convoy lurched into motion with a slow, rocking grit. We came to a drawbridge, the only crossing to the lawless jungle. The bridge had been engineered after the fashion of sauropod neck bones, so that after we crossed over and Koro stepped off, the vertebral support contracted, the bridge sprang back up like a pine branch relieved from the weight of snow. No retreat was possible. The hundreds of pounds of fish and armor kept Koro moving to a deliberate shuffle. Long past midday, we moved through a grove of lofty lepidodendron trees, if I'm pronouncing that right. Heavily damaged by the gigantic strength of a troop of creatures that must have been passed by recently. Suddenly, Koro lifted her head to the level of the treetops, fixed her gaze forward, then wheeled around with us clinging to our seats so that her whip-like tail would sweep the of ground, the perimeter of the ground, as an angry cat's tail will whip the grass. At the same moment, snorting, bellowing, the Stegosaurus guards back up into a circle around our unprotected quarter, presenting to the dark wall of jungle a fearsome row of horns. Alright, we got some armored brachio or sorrow long necks and some triceratops. They got the vertebrate drawbridge here, which is a pretty cool idea actually. I've said this a bunch while reading this, but I really love the drawings in this. It really reminds me of this other encyclopedia-like book. Especially this picture. I'm going to show you this picture right now. Because I'm like, oh, it's so much like this book. I seen, like, in my book, they got, it's like a famous picture, I think. I could probably find it. Like a couple, I don't know, Tyrannosaurus Rex looking things are like walking along the forest, sort of like this guy, but I don't think there's any like people trying to fight him. Got baskets of smoked eel, and you have scribes. With the heavy, bounding grit that shook the ground, a Tyrannosaurus broke into full sunlight. Close upon our circle, it paused, eyeing us hungrily, opening its terrific jaws and clashing its teeth. Binks told Will to stay ready to cut free the baskets of fish while I tried to quiet the frantic scribes. Okay, I gotcha. Those are like, alright. Dinosaurs that make scribes. Gotcha. Then, to my horror, Binks leapt down from her perch in the saddle onto the back of the Stegosaurus, there to confront the attacker directly. Angst, I watched as she addressed the creature by name in a chattering disclosure which seemed momentarily to confuse it. I can only compare her naive bravo to that of a squirrel whose nut has fallen to the feet of a passerby. Each time a raising rumble or a clack of jaws was checked by a burst of scolding. Binks signaled to Will to start cutting loose baskets. One by one, they broke open with a thud as they hit the ground, while we edged away, leaving the creature to gorge, I helped Binks back into the saddle. Will exclaimed, "Binks, what on earth did you say?" "We made a deal," she replied, winking. I told him I would. I told him he could have our snacks if he promised to leave alone the herd of defenseless sauropods coming through tomorrow. A deception which Binks modestly characterized as mere tact. I see why she's an ambassador, but it seems to me a hazardous defense at best against a clear danger, no matter what Binks claims to contrary. I trust Binks. I don't trust Will. Will's the outsider. He just got here. Okay, so I'll show you again this side. Then you got this side. There's Binks on the back of the... I thought they said that she jumped on the back of a stego. A Stichbrachiosaurus? A Stichbrachio? If I'm pronouncing that right. Alright. Then you got, a couple other pictures. Got her jumping down. Got them eating. Cerotosaurus? Gate of the Temple of Ruins. That looks absolutely epic. I wish I could draw this good. I wonder how he's painting this. Is this watercolor? I think this might be watercolor. For the next 6 days, our exit from the rainy basin was confounded by a lack of trails and a series of difficult river crossings. The channels, it seems, are constantly changing. At last the caravan achieved its destination. A solemn ruin held firmly in the grip of the jungle at the base of the Backbone Mountains. Singly or in groups, people arrive in the company of dinosaurs who have rid themselves of armor and baggage, ducked under the arch, and entered the sacred space within. Got a broke horn, a triceratops addresses the assembly. A broke-horn triceratops addresses the assembly. Binks is well known here. and greeted by all with immense respect. She has been designated as our personal guide, makes me realize how important the dinosaurs consider the arrival of new humans into their society. A dignified elder triceratops with a broken horn rose to address the assembly that had now gathered. Will and I assisted the scribes, tending the sandbox of the footprint writers. Our time spent along the sandbox and Waterfall City was not in vain. Yet it did little to help us follow Brookhorn's quaint forest hermit dialect. He carved a high arc with his nose horn. Wheezing, the scribes padded across the sand with great urgency, then dropped his beak, lifted the frill, and barked. The scribes spun in circles. He swung his head to one side and hooted. The scribes trotted, then paused. Will elbowed me. Father. They want us for something. I looked about. All eyes were upon us. Step forward, Binks whispered. You have just been announced. We would like to make some instructions. Okay. Got the super awesome archway that they're walking into. Then you got the Triceratops, you got the other dinosaurs, you got Binks, the Ambassador. Wow, it looks like there's a bunch of different regions or something. Lightwing and Ulu, Bracken and Frillhead, Big Tusk and Maureen, Drosolith, and I don't know if is that a T? Tico, Paddlefoot, and Magnolia, Draco, and High Jump. These are like a bunch of people that are across the top here. Whenever I'm just like naming off just random stuff like this, they have like descriptions by their names and stuff. So that's what I'm doing before I usually read the text part. We meet in each of the so-called habitat, we met in turn each of the so-called habitat partners. Each pairing of human and dinosaur represents a different biological region. Together, their lifetime devotion is to monitor all living conditions within their territories, reporting annually at this conference based on the advice and the help of the group. They would return home to supervise planting, pruning, and protection. Aerial. Ulu and Lightwing skybacks responsible for watching weather, rainfall, pollen, dust, forest, bracken, and frillhead. A Chasmosaurus, an area of great responsibility, the renewal and health of woodlands and jungles. Alpine, Maureen, and Big Tuss, one of the mammoths from the Forbidden Mountains. Their care, glaciers, tundra, high meadows, sulfur vents. Desert. Dorsolith, I can't pronounce. It looks it's like an ankylosaurus. It looks like the armored guys. I can't pronounce its name in the book. Elupiloclapho. Yeah, I can't do it. I can't do it. And oh, that's an S. That doesn't look like an S. Seco. 5 Mothers Soren, master of sand dunes, erosion, water management. Magnolia and Paddlefoot. Wait, that was desert. Freshwaters, Magnolia and Paddlefoot. Lambiosaurus, in charge of the swamps, lakes, and river. Savannah, Draco, and High Jump. Stratahemo minus. Range open country to look after grasses, reeds, insects, soils. Yeah, beaches and bays. These are the charge of the dolphins who could not be present. I was deeply impressed by the care and concern each sector displayed for the whole, and glad I had time to study Dinotopia's flora and fauna at Waterfall City. Will is in awe that he has actually been introduced to Ulu, the head Skyback's trainer from Canyon City. Alright. Got all the people. There's the Skybacks. There's the Ankylosaur that I can pronounce. This is what I want my house to be like. This is epic. After the conference ended, we continued north, all the way up to, all the way the back, all the way up the Backbone Mountains. Will pestered Binks with questions about Canyon City. He learned that her parents lived near here, and in fact, she was pleased to talk about her family. I kept quiet, saving my breath for the 3-hour climb, but I too would like to meet her kin. We have grown very fond of Binks. Eventually, we grew near to Treetown. The village perches in the canopy of an oak forest with a fine view of Deep Lake with tilled fields, barns, and botanical gardens within a short walk. Binks departed for one of the barns to hear the latest gossip. Of course she did. We ascended ladders and were greeted warmly by Noah, matriarch of Treetown. She soon involved us in busy activity. Supplies to be holstered, yams to be washed, rope to be mended. However, not before we had enjoyed a relieving snack of fruit or of fried millet cakes and syrup, along with fruit and cold berry juice, followed by a rapid tour of the main trees. Noah climbed up and down the ladder without a thought. And to tell the truth, I was only too glad to sit down to mend ropes. Sit down to mending ropes. A family of Brachiosaurus glided up from the valley below to receive their daily treats of fresh turnip ferns and water sprinkles. As the day wore on, Noah noticed how tired we were. She showed us our sleeping arrangements. Will, in one of the boys' trees, I in the big central one, and fed us a bowl of soup while telling us of the late evening bell that signals all to rack up the fires, put out the lights, and retire. Rake up the fires, put out the lights, and retire. I was asleep before the bell rang. I want to live in that tree house. Man, I really want to live in where are they Tree Town. Yeah, Tree Town's dope. I want to live in Tree Town. The view from Tree Town, from my sleeping basket, the lumber all came from a forest leveled by a windstorm 300 years ago. Wow. Will spent an uneasy night among giants. He reported to me he slept little between the heavy shifting of feet and sneezing and whistling noises and the muffled crunch of rocks in their bellies. Binks told us this helps them grind their food. At one point, Will opened his eyes to see a great head as large as a wheelbarrow peering down from a few feet above him. The great head swung up and vanished into the darkness of the rafters. His dreams were of walking trees and mountains that could inhale and exhale. As a result, Will's behavior has improved and seems to reapply himself with vigor to his tasks. I have lately had many conversations with Sylvia, renewing our memories of the days at the hatchery. She has a sweetness of character, surely the clue to her extraordinary relationship to all dinosaurs. She and Will seem to be a good influence on each other. Their days were uh, are full with all they must do and learn, and so are mine. After I complete my daily chores for Noah, I explore to this region and keep up the journal and field notes. Here is a wholly different class of flora at these heights. We must be about 520 feet of elevation, or as they refer us to say, 130 necks, each neck being a unit of approximately 40 feet. I have so far recognized great trees of rhododendron and enormously variety and enormous variety of delicate ferns, tiny rocks, violets, and many tuberous wild lilies. Cool nights, hot sunny days, a paradise. Brachiosaurus sleep in barns for protection from the occasional stray carnosaurs. One morning, Noah cheerfully said to me, "Arthur, it's time you had some company on your rambles. Take Malini, take Malini and call Luptra Clay Claylatra Malini and Claylatra with you." Malini is her 5-year-old granddaughter, and Cal, the Dryosaurus, who always accompanies her. I'm pretty sure that, I don't know. Alright. Okay. I don't know if it's watercolor or not. It might be watercolor. I think it's acrylic, or I think it's acrylic, or maybe oil paints. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. It's just I'm just trying to figure out how they did this. I think this is maybe oil paints. Okay. One morning. Okay, yeah. We already read that. Alright. As we toured through thickets and brambles, Malini would stop at a signal tiny shoot in the midst of a mass of vegetation and say, how you've grown." But no Bud or Tidril was a stranger to her. I soon discovered she was a positive encyclopedia on plants, and moreover, thoroughly enjoyed her role as a teacher. Okay. 5-year-old teacher. Alright. I asked where she had learned so much about her green people. "From Grandma," she explained. "I help her gather herbs. That's a remarkable child. I'm such taken with her as it delights me to say she appears to be with me, and I could not have found a better teacher. Malini has reawakened in me a love of nature, the joy of knowledge gained in carefree wanderings out of doors, which as a boy led me to become a scientist. Okay, I almost forgot to show you. You got them in the forest. What do you think? Is that watercolor? Or do you think I think that might be oil paints. I think they're all oil paints. Or maybe acrylic paints. Articulum longivirus, Chinopium, Feluca. These are a couple plants. My lips are so dry. This is a rare species known only to Dinotopia, related to the common burdock genesis of the Old World and New Worlds. Deep-rooted and growing to a height of 3 or 6 feet, it bears purple flowers with hooked bristles. Tinctures of the flower are used in medical healing, especially to promote strong wing membranes among the petrosaurs. The root is gathered, dried, prepared in a tea-like fusion using waters of the spring near Bent Root, and offered to humans after they have reached 24 summers. The claim often made is that the tea changes the body's chemistry to reverse the aging process. Thus, a human can approach or even exceed the lifespans of dinosaurs, known to live beyond their 250th year. I met a small, wrinkled man from Cornucopia, who claimed to be Cornelius Hagenhen, Cornelius Hagenhen, born in Holland in the year 1618 to have been one of four crewmen shipwrecked from a Dutch East India vessel. Where did I lose? He spoke with such familiarity about the old pepper ports on the coast of Java and other inequities that I could not easily discredit his story. Whether or not the claims are true, I cannot say. Nevertheless, as a practical man and a man of science, interested in making even such a long-term experiment, I now make a habit of drinking the tea of a Lungius. This is obviously the herb to which Nalab so airily referred to back in Waterfall City. To Dinotopians, corn and wheat are virtually unknown. Really? Okay. Come on, Dinotopians, you gotta step it up then. Corn? Everybody knows corn. Come on, corn? Freaking popcorn. Everybody loves popcorn. Everybody loves, corn on the cob. Everybody knows corn. Corn man. I grew up in the cornfields. I mean, they're all around me. I still live with them. They're all around me. To Dinotopians, corn and wheat are virtually unknown. Instead, they cultivate a variety of unfamiliar grains, including a variant of quinoa. Really? A variant of quinoa? You mean worse rice? Quinoa's not that bad. It's just... Yeah, I'd rather have rice. Okay. The tiny seeds are dried and steamed into a nutty, flavored mush, or ground into flour and converted into delicious pancakes and dumplings. The Aztecs used the whole plant and all of its parts for many different purposes, and worshipped it as a source of life. After their subjugation by the Spanish, the sacred grain was kept alive in hidden pockets in the mountain. This is, well, they'll tell you what we're, this is another, they're talking about two different plants here. This one's like the one plant that I said earlier that I really couldn't pronounce, and this one's the other one that, I was having problems pronouncing too. Okay. In 1582, a crewman named Toluca, human of Aztec descent, was traveling aboard the San Pedro. When his ship was wrecked, he was rescued by dolphins along with the cache of sea Tolska seeds safely sealed in coconut shells. The seeds had flourished in Dinotopia ever since. Tolska humans likeness in full headdress and stride a dolphin. It is often seen painted on dinnerware and appropriate place for a symbol of plenty. No, my bad. We got the one plant here. This is the one that reverses aging. This is the Aztec plant that I think they were talking about. Well, they got beehives. They have beehives in their. They have beehives in their tree houses. Interesting. Okay, so it says ladder to beehives, then the laundry is all washed at treetop level. Rain gutters collect water, which is used sparingly. Boys must wash their own. Boys must wash their own clothes? Okay, like, it seems that, like, a lot of the work going on in this world is the men doing it. Not even the dinosaurs do the heavy lifting. The men do a lot of the other heavy work, and then the women just make food. And I don't know, like, I don't know how their society is, like, divvied up. Like, I'm just like, okay, so they do laundry, but they only do their own laundry? Do they do all the dishes, or do they only do their own dishes? Do they make food for everyone, or is it just for themselves? Like, I'm confused. I feel like it's sort of unfair, but whatever. Alright, so boys must wash their own clothes. So be it. Will's experience in the rigid while at sea, has made him right at home at these heights. Everyone wants me to try this swing. I would. The Brachiosaurus encourages some dangerous stunts. Fortunately, there is a leaf pile underneath. Got women doing their thing. You got the kids playing. Binks likes to get into long musical conversations with sauropods. Bamboo panpipes, thumb piano, and a xylophone. Sauropod dinosaurs used musical notes to communicate with others and humans. Like whales or dolphins, they began with an upwards glide as a search call. A downwards glide indicates concern or distress. A rapid rising and falling series suggests great excitement or irritation. From these examples, from these simple beginnings, a rich musical language has developed. You got some other stuff on the other page. It has some guy and a dinosaur. It says raising sun, waterfall, water flowing underground, pose dancing as a verbally of gestures performed by a human dinosaur pair. Wow, beautiful. Alright, so we have two visions. We see what dinosaurs see, what it looks like to see in the dinosaur world, and then we see what it looks like to see as a normal human, like from the human's vision's perspective. They're totally different. We have spent many weeks living with and studying the habitats of dinosaurs. Soon, this training period will come to an end, but Binks has particularly asked me to make these pictures show how dinosaurs see the world through their eyes is evidently different from what we see. Dinosaur eyes take in a wider field of view, blending in at the edges like a glass globe filled with water. Nothing is gray or drab or dull. Rather, they see swimming particles of color, a moving mosaic of dancing colors, specks, as we would see a starscape in the night sky. They see sparkling lifescape in the woods by day, a world teeming with life. Some humans can see with dinosaur vision. Binks explained artists, poets, and children. But for the rest of us, as we grow older, the mammalian part of the brain clouds over the older reptilian parts. And drains away a little of the glory of the world. So you got regular human vision, then we have dinosaur vision. There's a song of Dinotopia. So what, do we go line by line and then do all the first lines, then go to the second line and do all the second lines, and go to the third line and do all the third lines, then we do the last line? We're going to try it like that. I don't know how to read music, so here we go. Come forth in joy to greet the morning, ye shipwrecked travelers on your shores reborn. Look up to see the rosy banners rise, the dawn's new promise right across the skies. Okay, hold on. Let me try to read this again. Alright. Come forth into joy. Come forth in joy to greet the morning. Ye shipwrecked travelers on your shores reborn. Look up to see the rosy banners rise, the dawn's new promise right across the skies. Join all and one the great parade in light-hued feathers or in scales, arrayed life's spirit grabbed in a various attire. Our is land, our is land's wardrobe does its sullen spire. Breathe deep, seek peace. Come around the fountain, crystal spring, let ancient wisdom from its sour sources. They're trying to make you like say sources but elongate it. Sources bring a drink to cool the warning and the strife, quiet the waters and doing life. Take up the chassel and the drum, each adding flourishes with claw and thumb. So gloriously cities rise from stony ground, advancing skywards with trumpetful sound. Now, okay, we got a picture here. Looks like a stegosaurus and someone playing some sort of musical instrument. Here's a song. Stegosaurus is a most fedacious animal. Carnosaurus needs dental work often. When around strangers, Styrosaurus needs to be assured with a rub under the chin. Sky hopping is a popular sport. Okay, sure. Sure it is. Oh, man. At the end of our training season, the young people take part in the Dinosaur Olympics. Heck yeah! Dino Olympics, I'm all in. Like, okay, I'll do my own laundry. I'll do whatever else. This place pretty much rules, aside from the laundry part. I mean, I do my own laundry anyways, but, I mean, come on, man. Like, I don't know. I'm in. I want Dinotopia. I'll do whatever it takes to be at Dinotopia and make it work. I swear. Freaking Dino Olympics? I'm in. Sold. Alright. The crowning contest, of which is the ring riding event held each year in Cornucopia, a settlement near Trintown. The object of the event is to capture the greatest number of rings of the proper color. The banner sprung across the track represents each of the 4 quadrants of the island. Rings are loosely attached with straps of paper. The saddle holds 2 riders, a young woman in front who steers by touch signals, and a young man standing on back who catches rings on a pole as he races past. Together, the skill and instinct of their steed, the Dinoceras, they make a trio. The human riders are selected by Noah. To Will's keen pleasure, he was paired with Sylvia. The 2 of them representing the hatchery sector of the entire northwest quadrant. Sylvia's rapport with dinosaurs is going to be extremely important. To understand the singular nature of the Dinoceras, imagine an ostrich growing 3 times its ordinary height, climbing onto the skin of an elephant, diving into a river of bright-hued paint, then prancing about with arrogance of a camel. Will, Sylvia, and the other contestants spent days practicing their temporal temperamental mounts. Interesting. So do they have like, do they string out more? Oh, okay, they do. Okay, I gotcha. So what, is it just once around, or do they go a couple times around? How many laps do they get? Alright. Race days saw crowds pouring into the rustic stadium from all the villages around Deep Lake, leaving not a single child in its dooryard. A single velvet robe in its closet, not a single hat on its peg. After many hours of feasting, dancing, a lone trumpet calls from the edge of the forest brought all to silent attention. Then, of a sudden clash of cramble, awoke the magnitude into a frenzy of excitement. A small demomorphion flying ahead to set the pace, carried around the great rings just ahead of the feet just ahead of the feet of the running giants. At first I tried to sketch, but I found myself yelling encouragement and leaping up and down along with the screaming spectators. Will and Sylvia mounted the track once, twice, 3 times, sometimes missing a ring with the pole, sometimes catching it, until before the cramble was struck again to conclude the running, they had their possession no less than 4 of the hard-won rings. Most of any team. My son's team was triumphant. Many hands clapped my shoulder and congratulations. Many long-necked dinosaurs swung their head towards me in a gesture of probation, approbation, gesture of approval. We're just gonna say approval. Whatever that word is, that word's ugh. Although I had done nothing, in fact, to contribute to the victory, I was enveloped in a crowd of happy celebration. Will, Savannah, and Crawl paraded through the crowds, Tailing the throng of children, the victorious trio paused to receive the blessing of all the dinosaur elders, many of whom had been present at the meeting months before in the temple ruins. Brookhorn gave each of them a token of good fortune for the journey ahead, and said this time with Binks translating, "You humans must now crack through your shell. You're ready to become a habitat partner. The earth, the sky, and the sea are all open to you. What region, what zone of life do each of you choose?" The sky was their simultaneous reply. Wow! Okay. Interesting. Will and Sylvia riding Claw, Dinotrosis, Dinotrosaurus, whatever. This triumph means they are assured of going on to Canyon City to train as Skyback's riders. Wow, they're both going to be Skyback's riders? That's cool. We soon departed for Canyon City. I was sorry to go away and leave Noah and Malene, even for the mysteries that surely laid ahead to the east, where Will and Sylvia could finish their training, for Will drawn upwards by eagerness to fly, and for me drawn forward by the hunger for new discovery. The rootless life offered its consolidation, but I will miss my friends. We made uncommonly good progress through the northern plains, riding upon the high backs of migrating apatosauruses, affording us a fine view of the foothills of the Backbone Mountains. One morning, after brooding a while in silence, Will turned to Binks and asked, what did he mean about Sylvia and I? Just cracking through the shell. Did he see us living inside an egg all the time before? ? You must understand, Will, that Brookhorn sees all humans young as protected, that is, as eggs. It was a great compliment. Cracking through the shell is no easy task, nor is living without a yolk sac. Will saw nothing odd in this. He is settling comfortably into human-saurian relationships. Eventually, a strong wind coming from a ridge announced our approach to Canyon City. We disembarked at the edge, seen before us, yawning and beckoning, a dreamland of air and stone. Oh my god. Oh my. That's so gorgeous. Canyon City. That is so gorgeous. This looks like water. Okay, maybe some of these are. Maybe some of these are watercolor. I don't know. It's either watercolor or oil paints. To a man who cannot fly. Canyon City and its nearby skyback ricketeers, rokeries, Skyback's rookery, known as Petros, is a wharf to the man without a boat. I had hoped to find skybacks lined up like galleons in Venice, with dashing tour guides ready to take me aloft, but only one rider can fit at a time on the special saddle, and a rider must know his mount better than a falconer knows his bird. But to the earthbound traveler, many wonders are within the scope of a network of trails and bridges. I must have returned, for instance, from a fine concert by a single Edminosaurus, who used to echo effect of a natural amphitheater to produce sustained notes of a chord penetrated by rhythmic bark coughs. Of the many departments are of many Of the many departments are carved into solid rock or built up from brick and nestled under rocky ledges. The windows are small, covered with paper rather than glass. Inside, the walls of the human dwellings are painted with frescoes of frolicking dolphins and bright wild flowers in the Mediterranean style. The villagers grow cotton, peppers, and squash on narrow ledges above the canyon, which drops down layer by layer to the bottom. 45 necks, 5,800 feet in vertical distance. The Admu River, if visible at all, appears a mere twisted brown thread as the changing afternoon sun brings new areas into bold relief. I fancy I see vast shapes in the rocky walls. I must find a way to investigate. Each morning before dawn, Will crawls out of his bed in a niche in the wall and takes 2-hour climb to the skyback rocketry. Like many of the dinosaurs abide I have seen, the rookery has none of the square corners and flat geometry of our European architects, blending instead with the natural flowing forms in rocks and decorated with designs of interlocking circles or spirals. I will accompany Will tomorrow to watch Ulu, the head instructor, prepare a batch of new pilots. Ulu, Skyback's instructor. Ulu and the student flyers assembled on a ledge beneath the growing canopy of the Skyback's wings. The creature preened and stretched and scuffled and ambled, folding and refolding its wings, and finally perched awkwardly. Please keep in mind that this is a petrosaur, not a dinosaur. It will not understand your human or saurian languages. In ancient days, the two largest petrosaurs, Pteranodon and Quartozillicodalus skybacks, parted ways. The skybacks took to heights above the earth and chose the rainbow as its sign. The Pteranodon remained in the canyons as a gatekeeper to the world beneath. Both have a needed role to play in the canyons, but you must honor the fact that they are old brothers who have their differences. You will discover. Continued Ulu, that your skybacks will not fly beyond the sentinels who guard the lower canyon. That boundary cannot be crossed while you are in flight. Interesting. You got a bunch of different symbols for for the showing what you are and how good you are. In the coming days, as Will and his fellow flyers began short excursions down the canyon, he discovered the truth of Ulu's words at the stone sentinels. Each skybax would wheel around like a Baltimore clipper coming about and returning to its accustomed space. What was the secret business of the canyon? Uluru spoke of the world beneath as if it were an actual place. Could there be any substance to those charters, to those old charters from Waterfall City? Now I felt intensely curious about this mystery. Who cares? Why is his persistence on going home? This is a utopia. I don't care. I don't care about how to get out. I'm staying. I don't care about how I get out. I'm staying, and yeah. During all of our travels in Dinotopia, we had found the people to be straightforward and gentle, encouraging of honest inquiry, hiding no secrets, fearing no taboos. Yet direct questions about the sentinel now brought an uneasy shrug, or at best a remark that the region had belonged to others, and for once Binks was of no help. She evaded discreet questions it seemed I would have to find out for myself. No, you don't. You don't have to find out anything. You're gonna, find out, and then you're gonna be the only one that leaves the island, and you're never gonna be able to see your son again and stuff like that. That's what's gonna happen. The skybex will not fly beyond the sentinels. Ulu had warned only against flying beyond the sentinels. Had someone explored the region on foot? Yes, indeed, but so long ago that no one really remembered. People, it seemed, did not like to violate the taboo out of respect for the Saurians. Would there be any objection to my taking a look in the name of science? No, indeed. But their tone was doubtful. If I choose to go, that was my decision to make. Will and I spoke long into the night about exploration. To my amusement, he disapproved of my poking about. He agreed to come a part way, but at least to the bottom of the canyon, despite Sylvia's strong-minded opposition. We provisioned for the expedition dry food, light blanket, oiled wrap, note paper. Although Will had offered to keep the journal up to date Of course, I would also need to make my own notes below. I wore my old coat and reinforced my footwear, envisioning a fairly rough journey. We descended the cliffs by an old trail that was still in use. It stopped at the water's edge, and we were obliged to wade or shamble as we proceeded south. We reached the confluence of the ancient George, some 10 miles below Canyon City, and made camp. Here, thumbing greens and whitewaters mingled with the brown of the Amu. By firelight, the rocky walls above the water showed distant sheen, but not of natural erosion, but as if something had rubbed them to a polished surface. The next day we followed the pathway of rubbed walls beyond the point of the sentinels, where, rounding a turn of the river, we came upon an extraordinary sight. Strange monuments, Egyptian in character, along with carvings that suggested the first meeting between humans and dinosaurs, fascinated, we were drawn in. We swam through a sunken canyon of old monuments. The historical reliefs. We continued further downstream, even before we saw the Pteranodons. We expected them. The smell of death hung heavy in the air. The bodies of dead dinosaurs lay about us, being scorned to the bone by the scavengers. The Pteranodons did not attack us, but flew up, alarmed and aggravated, to the top of an isolated bluff, where they followed our progress with sober interest. There were there was no horror for us in the landscape of the decay. It was hushed and somber, clearly a holy place to the great creatures who, in their last days, would come here by choice to review the sacred sculptures and to give their flesh for the renewal of life. A deep ramble ahead drew us forward to find a vast circular opening to which the waters of the Amu River plunged. A broad spiral pathway carved from the rock by ancient claws led downward from the brink, but at this point Will thought he should go no further. "Wait here, Will," I said. "I'm going down to have a look ahead." I descended the sloping ledge some 100 feet to find that the river had created a deep channel into the earth, surmounted by a vaulted rock and flanked by a safe walkway. A blast of fresh-scented cool air hit my face. I pushed forward. Now I could see a strange illumination, Fetrophorus that shone upon growing plants, mosses, ferns, then shrubs growing in wild profusion. Along them, a triaxium offenile, which I knew to be edible. I'm guessing it's a plant. I surmised that I lacked nothing to sustain me on a much longer journey. I scrambled back to the surface to find Will looking upward, high above in the small patch of sky that remained visible above the surrounding curtains of stone. It's like this every single day. That sounds like he's going way faster than he should be. His skybax was descending, showing concern for Will by daring to enter the hallowed territory of the Petrodon. This was the chance of a lifetime for me, I said to Will. The door to a whole new world. I reassured him I had ample provisions and would return in a few weeks, and thanked him for undertaking to keep the journals despite the new demands on his time. I am poor at expressing the pride I feel in my boy. Good luck with your training, I said as we parted. I watched him swoop upwards with a rush of wings, then turn to descend to the earth. Then I turned to descend into the earth. Interesting. Okay, so now it's being told from Will's point of view. It's not being told from his father's point of view any longer. This is very interesting. Alright. Journal of Will Dennison, March 10th, 1866. The busy weeks have passed. As I write for the first time in this book, I can feel my father beside me. Our training is hard. Lying in the saddles makes my shoulder and neck really hurt. Curis has a fierce independence, and she will not be controlled. After seeing her to her roost, I often spend the evening with Sylvia and Binks, sometimes at Binks' home. Sylvia won't be controlled either, Binks says Binks. I don't know what she means, but I'm not trying to control Sylvia. Only Curis. Anyways, no one could control Sylvia. Look how well she talked to my father when he went off. I wonder where he is now. Binks says the caves are part of a huge network. No one goes down there now, but it once sheltered all island life. Binks says that somewhere in the canyon walls, the story is carved long, long ago before humans started coming. The sky went black with dust and got very cold. The dinosaurs collected seeds, spores, insects, everything, and took themselves and the whole lot underground. Something like Noah's Ark. Later, when the air got clear again, everything came back to the surface. The ramps that my father went down was the one the dinosaurs used to come out. Dinosaurs traveled past the sentinels to die because it feels like coming home. It's been a month since Father left. How could it be a month? I feel I understand Circus better. She lets me treat her wings with Burdocks medicine. Yesterday we practiced launching and landing in strong headwinds. Besides flying, there's a whole lot of studying about clouds and winds. At least I'm better at study than Sylvia. Binks says it's my father coming out of me. He ought to be back soon. Ulu has been working with me to change the habits I learned with horses. Stop steering, he yells. Sylvia is lucky. She never learned bad habits. I asked Ulu again today when we might be considered for full apprenticeship. Sirius, Cirrus, and Nimbus will tell you when you're ready, he said. You need to win their respect. You cannot ask them to carry you aloft until you have a feel for what it takes to climb through the air with heavy weight on your back. You have to show them that you are not tied to the earth. How can I do that? I said. I can't fly. You can climb, he said. You've got feet and you can carry a backpack. He pointed upwards towards the mountain with his chin. Up there at the top you'll find an old building called the Tent Pole of the Sky. Other riders have made the climb, but you would be the first dolphinback. Sylvia should climb beside you. You might need her help. It's a hard trip, but think of Saurus and Nimbus. You'll win them full partner from it. Binks blinked when we invited her along. No, not for me, she said. This is for you. I'm no mountain climber. And besides, I have some family business to tend to. Some weeks later, Sylvia and I left Canyon City. Saying goodbye to our human and saurian friends. Ulu assured us my father would return, that he would somehow be taken care of. Cirrus and Nimbus waited for us at the trail. At the trailhead. It was hard to leave them, especially Sirius. It was hard to leave them, especially when Saurus folded me in her wings. When then, as Sylvia and I left, they both stretched out their wings in a low lap, like a wave goodbye. Sylvia was crying. I could not put my arm around her because of the backpacks, but I held her hand. As far as the eastern foothills of the Forbidden Mountains, the way was easy. Sometimes we met an occasional traveler. Even this far from the sea, there were even this far from the sea, here were monuments. The work of dinosaurs, Sylvia says, raised to honor sea creatures such as trilobites, nautiloids, and sea scorpions. Got the monuments of the trilobites, got Surus, Mono, Moropus, Brontotelium, ancient animals who lived in the mountains. Ah, okay, I got you. In a few days, the wide dinosaur roads thinned out, replaced by footpaths leading up along the streams. We began to climb through thickly wooded valleys of silver fir, FIR, giving way to dwarf ranodons, rhododendron, rhododendrons. Why do we have these stupidly big names? Sylvia, why are they all hard to pronounce? Why is Will's name not hard to pronounce and his father's not? But every single other name, it's like pulling teeth. Because they want to make them feel like unique and different and a different society. I get it, but it's annoying whenever you're trying to pronounce stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna write a fantasy book where the main character, if I don't know how to pronounce their name, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna make it hard for other people to pronounce their name or to even guess at their name. That sounds like a bad way to promote your idea or your book or your story or whatever you're trying to sell me. A very bad idea. Your main character needs to be relatable, not a name that you can barely pronounce. Or like anybody, like a big bad guy, any character in your book shouldn't be that hard of a name to say. I'm going off on a rant. I'm sorry. Sylvia found minty ground creepers, which she collected to brew a fine tea. For some days we had a bad time, slowed by giant piles of sharp boulders, some larger than a house, scattered around. Sometimes separated by foaming torrents. I was worried too about saber-tooths, so I found a spout, sharp pole, a stout, sharp pole. Sylvia laughed. I didn't mind. The pole came in handy for climbing. From the high, barren areas, we were able to look down on the canyon. It looked like a small snatch in a table, a small scratch in a table. Once we thought we saw Cirrus and Nimbus far off watching us, but might have been other skybaxes. We reached our first goal, a village shared by humans and large mammals. Giant ground sloths, Gaituplodonts, and camels. By nature, more restlessly and rugged than dinosaurs. By nature, more restless and rugged than dinosaurs. A fine, sympathetic mammoth, a cousin of Big Tusk, offered to carry us as far as he could. Being familiar with the terrain, he had good footing, even on ice, and he found overhangs for each night. He found overhangs for us each night, sealing our shelters with the warmth of his great body. After he had to turn back. We scaled the mountain on foot. With each ridge we floated higher, disappearing from time to time in mist. By turn, we encouraged each other, Sylvia never complaining, and during the freezing nights we huddled together. This is the tent pole in the sky. That building right there. At least at the end of a very long day, we reached the summit, resting our backpacks thankfully against the fountain stones. The clouds thickened, snuffing out the final flickers of sunlight. Above us, bells rang out. Later learned they announced the rising of the black tent, that is, the onset of night. We shouted for many minutes until our great relief. One face and then several leaned out over the parapet. A rope ladder dropped to the snow beside me. After being greeted, we were led straight to our host, Livka Gimbo, who lost no time in refreshing us with hot buttered tea in clay cups. Blankets of woven fur, the first we had seen in Dinotopia, and a strong aromatic incense. All this combined to lull us into an exhausted, dreamless sleep. Next morning, after simple breakfast, we toured the old frescoes and learned some history. Far as we were from dinosaurs, we felt their goodwill, for this magnificent building was their idea. Although built by Tibetians, the dinosaurs realized that certain newcomers benefited from being isolated. Some people needed to be private for a time, removed from reminders of all they had lost, until they are ready to take on a new life. Nothing could be more removed than this place, since no trails can be maintained. Supplies are brought in by a floating balloon boat called a sky gallery. The map room. And we have a picture of Livka Gimbo living at the top of the mountain has begun to cast a curious spell over me. At dawn, the silence is utter and absolute. From the balconies on clear mornings, I can trace the course of both great rivers, the Amu and the Po Longo. I can even see a tiny grain of white that must be Waterfall City. Late at night, or when the wind is howling about the cold stones outside, I sometimes venture down to the map room, housed in the belly of the building. To my great delight, I have found a chart showing the extensive caves of the world beneath. Apparently, there are many luminous passages and chambers, several ports through which my father might exit, although knowing him, I realize he would not stop until he satisfies his curiosity. I told Livka about his journey. He seemed to sense the turn of my thoughts. You will find your father again, he said, but neither of you will be the same. I pressed him to explain. Each person who arrives in Dinotopia becomes reborn, and the birth is different for each individual. Your father will be born of the earth. You and Sylvia will be born of the sky. Sylvia greeted me. Sylvia agreed with me that Livka is a very ancient man. I hesitated to ask his age, but she teased me until I did. Whereupon he said, I have long given up measuring the years, and my eyes twinkled, added, as I told your younger friend, or as I told your young friend, Sylvia mischievously, giddily has reached out to other keepers of the tent pole. Greedily? Greedily reached out? I have often listened to their laughter as she studies the intricately beautiful weavings they do, using fur shed by mammals. Both of us help with chores, even though we're together most of the time. She often seems lost in her own thoughts. She's still a mystery to me. A great deal has happened since writing the above. One morning, our routine was interrupted by Livka, who sat us down and handed each of us a stack of very old, faded picture cards. Look through these, he said. Choose one. Choose just one to return to me. Absorbed, I considered each image: a bridge, a house, a fish, a flame, a moon, a cloud, a flower, a tributite. I put the cloud card into his waiting hand, just as Sylvia gave him hers. Our eyes met. Livka held up the cards. Twin clouds. We both knew at once that this was a turning point. Alright. We both knew at once this was a turning point. Livka had known too. Earlier, earlier must have sensed the sky gallery approaching from afar. For there it was, drifting on the horizon. By the time we packed and said goodbye, it was looming overhead, secured by its dragline to a bronze ring. As wenches lowered the bundles of cargo, Livka turned to us and smiled. "Breathe deep," he said. "Fly high. Seek peace." Then he gestured us up the ladder. We followed the gallery man and crouched in the boat-like gondola. The rope was freed, and we watched in a sense as the snowy peaks dropped away. They got a plow shaped like skybacks in the front of the ship. Full of speed, a headway of 6 knots. Twin rotating air paddles, paddle-powered bags of rocks are added or removed until the lift force is correct. A gallery man with arms outstretched. The silk tassels help signal change in wind currents. This one is like photorealism. This one has to be oil paints. At first, we drifted like a leaf on a lazy river, and revolting slowly as the sun alternately warmed each side of the gas envelope, until we began to pedal. All was silent and serene. Pairs of gallery men took turns at the squeaking pedals, which moved us along fast enough to feel the bitter air on our face. The gallery men knew Canyon City well. One was a retired Skybax rider, and were pleased to carry us as far east as they could. But the sea of clouds underneath us was beginning to look ruffled and uncertain. By the 4th hour, we struck a hot updraft from the eastern face of the Forbidden Mountains, and we noticed the world was shrinking even further away. The sky above was dark, deep blue, and the air so thin we were panting. A tug on a red rope released perilous helium, and we reversed direction, plunging down into the clouds. We dropped perilously low, despite bag after bag of being cut free. Violent gusts whirled us about, plunging us at a moment into gray obscurity. The next, desperately near the rocky clutches of the mountain, it was a solemn kind of fury, quite unlike the wild screaming of the typhoon that wrecked our ship. When we stopped paddling, the only sound was the soft groaning of the gondola and the eerie whistling of the wind over the mountain passes. Woof. Well, dang. Poor Sylvia was in misery from the winging and spinning. I held her securely in my arms and soothed her, telling her that whatever happened, we would be together. In the fading light, we could see that the rope work and the rudder had been damaged. Gallery men jettisoned and everything they could, but still the balloons scarcely hold us aloft. At which point each of us realized we had lost all control. There was nothing left to do. The darkness overcame us, but oddly enough, I felt no fear. All wrapped up in as much coverings as possible and we all wrapped ourselves in as much coverings as possible and secured ourselves for a hard landing. But our aimless flight took many hours. There was no sense of movement or direction. Sylvia and I often dozed off from time to time and woke to the feel of warmer air. Suddenly, a galleryman shouted. His words were lost in several bouncing jolts that ended in a splintering crash. Luckily, the final impact was softened by what later turned out to be a field of flowers. At the time, after making sure no one was seriously hurt, we all curled up on the ground and slept, exhausted, until dawn woke us to reveal a shattered ship. In the growing light, we could see a large city on the horizon. Our pilots recognized it instantly. Dinotopia, capital of Dinotopia. Sauropolis. Sauropolis. After eating what remained of our food, we set out. Even from a distance away through the grand entrance gate, we could hear music and laughter. Apparently, no one had been able to observe a crash. We simply joined the stream of people, all carrying flowers and colored banners, and entered the city capital. A crowd of merrymakers preparing for a parade swept us up in its spirit of happy abandon. Alright. We're getting close. We're like 10 pages, maybe less. Sylvia took my arm, and we drifted like dragonflies. Carelessly of the sudden rattle of drumbeats, the blare of trumpets, or the squeal of children running wildly past us, their long-tailed nannies in anxious pursuit. I know there was some residue left in me from solitary mountaintop peace and the sky-tossed surrender that we had just experienced. Sylvia moved beside me. I felt great joy knowing she had shared in every step of the journey. My father once told me the words of Malik, the timekeeper. The whole earth is a heartbeat. Now, for the first time, I sensed that pulse of life, animating all of us, every creature, large and small. Presently, a woman, apparently an official of the city, approached us, looked us up and down, and exclaimed, "It's you, Sylvia and Will." "Yes, you're right," said Sylvia, puzzled that we would be recognized. "Great eruptions. Did you know? Of course not. Did you know? Of course not. Arthur and Binks have arrived. That is, they've left." "Oh, you've must missed them. You must just miss them. They left for Waterfall City a few days ago. It was 3 day. It was a 3 day trip by land. So they should." "My father and Binks," I interrupted. "What were they doing here?" "They should be in the Canyon City." "Well, I don't know about that. They were certainly here. I arrived by sea, popping up right in the harbor in a most extraordinary vessel. Come, I'll show you." Bewildered, we followed our guide to the harbor. An old primitive craft was holstered on display. Glass domes, brass hatchets, coils, scraps, hinges, and steering fans fitted roughly together in what appeared to be an underwater vessel. "Isn't it ingenious?" said the woman. "Put together by Arthur, with the help of Binks." I was amazed. I had no idea my father was so handy with machines. "My father must have found a way out of the world beneath," I said. Sylvia excitedly agreed. The woman suggested we immediately send a message by signal tower to Ulu to request our skybaxes and permission to fly them. A fanfare sounded in the distance. A fanfare sounded in the distance. "While you're waiting for your skybaxes," said the woman, "do join our parade. How lucky that you arrived today. It is our festival to honor children and hatchlings. We have the submersible vessel with all the bits and bobs. Now look, it's the cover of the book. They got the parade going on. Beautiful picture of the parade. Rather than joining the parade, Sylvia and I were content just to watch, to see the spectacle unfold as if in a dream. Sylvia was given a basket of violets and a tiara of daisies. I will see her so forever in my mind. Whatever happens in the future, I was not really certain on her feelings, although sure of my own. One thing I realized, our parents would think us both too young come for marriage. Their word for marriage. Come springetit, come spiritit. But at least we were together to share the life of Skyback's rider together. At least Cirrus and Nimbus arrived to our great joy. Scraped to their saddles were our new flying outfits, emblazoned on the shoulder with the badge of apprentice. We unrolled a note of Ulu. Congratulations. You don't need my permissions. You have theirs. Seek high, or fly high, seek peace. Binks and Nimbus, Binks, Sirius and Nimbus carried us to the land platform of Waterfall City. We stood for a moment, thrilled to feel again the cascading thunder of the waters. Before long, Binks arrived, wagging with excitement. Sylvia kneeled down. Why didn't you tell us you were going in after Arthur? I didn't want to make you worry. You had your own work to do. I felt Arthur might be in need of some assistance. But for a dinosaur going into the world beneath, isn't that breaking an old custom? I said. We ambassadors have freedom to go wherever we can be of service. Now come. There's someone who wants to see you. She took us to the library, where we at last found my father, the center of an eager throng of geographers and historians. He broke off as soon as he saw me rush over and hugged me for the first time since I was a little boy. When I got my breath back, I said, I'm told you just arrived. What happened down there? Were you in danger? Well, my father hesitated. In a way, my boy, in a way, but, oh, Will, you won't believe the wonders I've seen. The fantastic discoveries. He put his arms around Sylvia. But the truth is, I have never in all my life been so glad to see any two people. The new studio with easy access to the library and to the falls. Reunited, we stood and watched the falls. Journal of Arthur Dennison. I have read Will's notes, and I smile at them, at the transformation they reveal. When I left him, he was a boy. He entered the library door, a young man, seeing Will and Sylvia both wearing uniforms of the Skybacks Riders, fills me with a father's pride. Will has the furrowed brow and the square shoulders of a man of purpose, and from the little glances they exchange, Will and Sylvia have become good friends who respect and love each other. Have I changed as well? Perhaps so. My friends from the dear old world we are left so long ago. We left so long ago on the wharf in Boston. Those fellows surely would wag their heads at me, but I wonder if I will ever see their faces again. No matter, our old life was richly rewarding, and I'm grateful to it. But here, on Dinotopia, my eyes have been opened to the wonders of a new world. Seeing with fresh eyes has rejuvenated me. I find enormous enthusiasm filling my mind. The lab has given me a simple studio overlooking the falls, a home for my spiral pocket watch, my plumes and pencils, my maps, my designs, and most of all, my recent field's notes, which at the moment are in disarray, have been made under difficult circumstances in the world beneath. There's a lifetime, a long lifetime of work to do here. I cannot start soon enough. Okay. And that's what we're left with. That's the end of the book. That is Dinotopia. So, no clear resolution on whether or not they go home, but I don't care about that. Honestly, I think that they stay. I think that he had some problems down below, and then Binks helped him out, and they made this underwater, I don't know, submersible, but I don't think he's leaving, which is the main point. I think he's gonna stay. I think he's like, I'm done. I'm not leaving. I'm not trying to leave anymore. This is my home. And It's awesome. It's a freaking great book. I highly recommend checking Dinotopia out. Even though I just watched, or even though I just read it to you, but you should definitely try to find it for yourself. Most definitely a really, really good read. Yeah. I'm gonna turn this off, and maybe start another stream so I can do something else. So I can actually use this video as a YouTube video, you know what I mean? So let me log off here, and if you're so willing, you can join me if you want, momentarily, whenever I turn back on and find something else to do. This was fun. This was good. I know I suck at reading, but the only way you get better at reading, especially reading aloud stuff, is if you practice. Practice makes perfect. I'm not the best at reading aloud. I'm not the best at reading in general, but practice makes perfect, you know? Alright. I will see you guys soon.